You can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stuntz. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out. Yeah! 40. It is. Larry Crouch. 15, 10.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like this podcast. As always, we're your host, Blake, my brother, Brooks. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow us on Twitter or X, _Corner.
We have the blue check
Instagram,
now.
Cornhusker Corner. We do have the blue check. So if we don't have a blue check there, it's an imposter.
Yes.
But yeah.
So you just know when you see that blue check, we pay for Twitter.
Yeah, we got suckered into Elon's.
Well, I wanted to talk to the AI bot for
feeling lonely.
Yeah, for feeling lonely and just to see how different it is from Meta AI when you ask it pretty controversial current political questions,
Sure.
we'll just say. And it's a stark contrast, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
It's a stark contrast. It damn near is telling me what to vote for. I'll just say that. But anyway, so we're here to talk Husker football. We're here to be your escape from all that crap happening. And we're excited for football season to come back, man.
Yeah.
We're 31 days away. We're a month away today from the first game of the year. So
It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's been a while since we met. How do you feel, man?
I mean, so much has happened, and yet not a lot has happened.
Yeah.
What's happened has been pretty substantial since we last met. And everything.
Yeah.
But I think the best feeling is being able to turn this little Chiron down there at the bottom from off-season updates to preseason.
Yeah,
I feel like it's officially that we can talk about that stuff. But yeah, I don't even remember last time we met.
Probably beginning of
Butler,
June,
probably
somewhere around there.
Probably Butler hadn't been.
No,
That whole
that
thing
hadn't
hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
No, because that was around the 4th.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. So we have 3 big pieces of news. We'll just right now, so we know what we're going to be talking about. The Butler thing, the NCAA giving us the 105 scholarship thing. That's big news that's happened since then, which affects us. And then I think the other one was there's just like little tidbits, like they're selling tickets for a practice, and we're going to move into a grass field in a couple of years. Lots of things like that have been announced that we'll talk about. But what do you want to start on?
Let's just start on the fact that we have a new DB's coach.
Yeah.
I know that's old news, so we won't spend a lot of time on it. It's been reported on to death and everything. But the situation, for anybody that's been living on a rock, Evan Cooper, he decided to leave the program for personal reasons. Side note, as far as I'm aware, he hasn't gone anywhere else. So, whatever personal issues that happened, he's probably just dealing with that. And we hired, for some reason in my head, Jamari, because
John Butler.
Yeah, I almost said Jamari. But yeah, no, we hired John Butler, who has a very, very good resume. Has
awesome
been
resume.
A defensive coordinator at Penn State for a stint. Before that, he was defense, kind of like another defensive coach there before he got upgraded. Most importantly, he spent the last 4 years, I believe, in Buffalo with the Buffalo Bills as their DB coach. And of those 4 years, 3 of them, he's had a top 5 defensive back core in all of the NFL.
Yeah.
And there were people in Buffalo thinking that he was going to get defensive coordinator eventually and go, and before he decided to step away and everything in this last offseason. Now, we hired him pretty much right away. Well, he got attached to the job pretty much right away. Yeah. His official hiring wasn't for another couple of weeks, probably as they negotiated salary.
Right, but it was like 48 hours later that we were hearing John Butler.
We were hearing John Butler. It's good that we, were able to have that sealed up a little bit before We got too far into it, especially like going into media days, because it happened at a really terrible time in the off-season cycle, because most of the coaches that are decent coaches have either like said they're retired, they're not doing it, they went to an analyst role, or they've been hired already.
Right.
So when you're trying to find a potential new defensive coordinator, this is probably the best case scenario for us.
No, yeah, it's a big hire. I mean, and on paper, it's a resume upgrade. Yeah. So the way Evan Cooper sort of his character arc at Nebraska, I'd say, was sort of like, at first when he was hired, I felt underwhelmed just when I first heard the name, heard that he was following from Carolina. I was underwhelmed personally right off the bat with Evan Cooper, but then he sort of won me over, and it sort of felt like he won the fan base over. Like people liked Evan Cooper a lot, and it seemed like he knew what he was doing. He was Rule's top talent scout. Rule multiple times said he was his right-hand man. So it's no small loss losing Evan Cooper, but it seemed like a situation where something had come up. I don't know what, but they knew about it for a little while, and it seemed like maybe back channel discussions were had with John Butler leading up to that. And then in the case of John Butler, it's just a perfect situation because he has all the experience in the world, all the experience you could want with a DB coach. And he was looking for something else. I mean, he was to the point where he's like, okay, they're not going to make me DC. I'm going to go somewhere where I can be DC someday. So that's what it's really set up for. He's an experienced coordinator, an experienced DB's coach coming in, wanting to be a coordinator. And hopefully our defense keeps playing the way it does, because Tony White's going to be somewhere else. I mean, if that's the case.
Yeah, and that's the consensus, like nationally. Yeah. Like,
and that's what you want to happen. Alabama didn't want to lose Kirby Smart, but
good coaches, coaches on good teams are the ones that get hired away. Coaches on bad teams are the ones that don't. I mean, you look at Tony Tuioti.
Tuioti.
Yeah. I mean, that was probably the last time our defensive line looked serviceable. Is when he was the coach. Sure. But minus last year, right?
Of course.
But just so there was that the year or two after he went to Oregon. I mean, he's still there, and they're cranking. So
yeah, I mean,
I was thinking about that.
Even the year Bill Bush took over, like that defense was decent, but even the D line wasn't the strength of that unit. It was the DBs and the linebackers that were really the strength of that unit. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. But I was just trying to think about the last time like a coach just up and left. Really
it's been a while. I mean, we haven't, like you said, we haven't really been in a position of success where people are trying to poach our coaches away in any way. So, yeah, it's been a while. It has. But it's a good problem to have. It's the same thing as people wanting your players. Usually, people want your players for one of two reasons these days: because you're really good and you got a lot of good players, or because you're really bad and players are leaving and jumping out the windows. But players are a different case, but coaches generally they come after your coaches if you're doing really, really well, and that's it. So I like the John Butler. It was just so. One thing I will say is just and I don't want to throw shade on any other coaches we've ever had, but it just feels like if a situation like this happened with Bo or with really any coach that we've had during my lifetime, it would have been a lot more impactful. Rule seems like the type of guy who has enough relationships, who can handle a situation like this. He was the fireman who was hired for Baylor. He was hired to put out the fires at Baylor. I mean, he has a lot of we don't even know what happened with Evan Cooper, and we'll probably never know what happened with Evan Cooper, because he runs a tight ship. Nobody's talked about it, and people know. Let's make no bones about it. People know. So if it speaks a lot to how Rule runs his program that we don't know, to be honest.
And plus, like, Nebraska doesn't need any bad vibes.
No.
Like if it's something even potentially, like it was just personal, but if it's something that could get back, like okay, you're gonna
store,
like robbing a vape store or something like that.
That would be the same store.
Same store.
That'd be crazy.
He's like, okay, this is how Eric got caught. All right. So let's move on to another piece of news. You kind of mentioned it. So what do you think about the new grass that coming in? Because
it's long overdue. It's long overdue. The last couple years, every single time I've gone to Memorial Stadium, I look at it, as all Husker fans should and do, as this mecca of college football, as like the temple. That's where we go and we have our sort of communal experience, right? It's a special place, bottom line. And it has a lot of history, some of the richest history in college football. And I've always felt, I know we've had this partnership with Field Turf for a long time, but I've always felt the last couple of years that I've gone, especially, that grass just fits the identity of it better. It just does. It's more classy. It's just, forget about all the injury stuff that we'll touch on for sure. But just as an idea, it's a classy place full of classy people, that's all about tradition. Mm-hmm. And grass is right in line with that, in my opinion. So that being said, the studies have also come out about, knee injuries specifically, but injuries in general. And the data is there even on our own team. You see the way they practice constantly on grass, and then they'll have one scrimmage in the stadium on turf, and 2 people get torn ACLs when nobody was getting hurt for weeks before that. And it's all anecdotal, but I think it's a good thing. Bottom line.
Yeah, there's some evidence here and there, especially for injuries.
Yeah.
I go back and forth on it. They're not going to have this problem. It was one of the reasons I think in like high school, especially, lower tier, like football, I think field turf is probably the better option, just because a turf field that is not well maintained is way better than a grass field that is not well maintained.
Agreed with that. 100%.
So whenever I
played
was
in
playing,
some mud bowls, man.
Yeah. Whenever I was playing, I always preferred, I liked the smell of grass and everything. And
right.
You don't get the turf burn or whatever. But I always preferred playing on turf because you knew the conditions were going to be okay. Sometimes, especially like when it was going to be a rain game or something, like you don't want to be on grass, and there's really not much you can do. But and look at the Super Bowl 2 years ago with the Eagles and the Chiefs. That was the NFL, and that was a poorly managed grass situation.
100%.
So condition wise, with how squirrely Nebraska weather can be, I understand why field turf has been the preferred option. But if there's like a big clamoring to go back to grass from the inside, I don't have a problem with it. They know more than I do.
And it's a farming state full of agriculturally minded people, and Acres is one of the sponsors of Nebraska. Yeah. It's like, it's a match made in heaven. You have plenty of people that can handle the grass situation in Nebraska. Plenty of them.
Yeah, it's not just Bud.
With
his John Deere. Hey, can you get Bud out here? We got a game tomorrow.
No, I think it'll be a very not just knowing Nebraska, knowing how they handle things. I think it'll be a very well-maintained surface, because I agree with you. Like when you get to first of all, turf has, even field turf, zero give. And you notice it a lot, especially when you're playing in the trenches, because like whether you like it or not, in the trenches, whether you put somebody on the ground or whether you're getting put on the ground, you're on the ground a lot. Like you're just on the ground a lot. So your head hits the ground and you feel no impact, versus I would go play Kip Sunnyside, which was like this ghetto team in the middle of the Houston ghetto, but they had like a grass field, and there was rocks that you might trip over and all that type of stuff. But like when your head hits the ground, the clod gets stuck in your face mask because there was some give, you know what I mean? Like, it's so, just from a physics standpoint, it makes sense to me why there would be less injuries on grass, on especially a well-maintained grass field, than it would be on turf. But the well-maintained part is the most important thing. Like you talked about the Super Bowl, they had patches of grass coming up, and the entire middle of the field was muddy, and it was just a mess.
It was a mess.
But yeah, so and I wouldn't doubt. I mean, look, we've had some storm games here, and we've never really had to deal with the mud factor because we have a turf field, but that's going to happen. I mean, you can only do so much with a grass field. But it's going to be 2 years. So the next 2 years we're in that turf field. 2020, the 2024-25 season, then 25-26 we're in the turf. But yeah, just think of the injuries last year. Just think of how many injuries we had. And like none of those were camp injuries. They were all field injuries that they had during the game. Ramir and the running back. I can
Bourbon.
name all of them. All of them. We all remember.
Yeah.
Crazy amounts of injuries. I watched a podcast today. It was No Block, No Rock. They had Ethan Piper on. It's a really good podcast. I'd recommend listening to it. But he was just talking about how when he got hurt, like he went into the training room the next day and it was insane the amount of people that were in there. And it was like all people that we were like expecting to be big time contributors. And it was like, now we're all just sitting in here hanging out. Like, and I could just imagine, but I think grass will help mitigate that. I do. But
Some of
anyway,
it,
we can move on if you like.
Yeah. But yeah, no, grass field coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next thing, just the media days happened last week. Any sort of nuggets, that you kind of had here that came from it? Because for me, it was like,
I think you just come to know what to expect with Rule at this point. He handles himself very well. We could talk about the Paul Feinbaum thing. I really just don't even think it's worth our time because, again, it's just Paul going for clicks, and he took everything what Rule said and not, I don't want to say out of context, but he like strawmanned it where basically he pretended
Kamala
that
Harris'd it.
Yeah, he pretended that Rule said something that he didn't say, and then he argued the thing that he pretended Rule said, and Rule it was just total But anyway, so I think Rule did good. I think they all did good. The biggest takeaway I thought was actually not even our coach. It was Deshaun, what's his name?
UCLA.
Yeah, UCLA's coach. Deshaun Foster, UCLA's coach.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, I have a theory about it, which is my theory is that like they just got done with summer workouts, right? And sometimes things happen with summer workouts. Like Jim Harbaugh got a tattoo after they won the national championship because he made a bet with his players that, if we win the national championship, I'll get a tattoo. Maybe like there was a summer workout thing, and he was like, if y'all do this will be my opening statement at Big Ten Media Days.
I mean,
because here's the thing, he's not like a media darling coach. Like, to me, like everyone was looking at it like, oh, this is a bad sign for UCLA. I think there's other factors with him being a new coach in the Big Ten that spell more of a bad sign to UCLA than the opening statement at Big Ten Media Days.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was, if you haven't seen it, he basically just gets up there and it's like 2 minutes. The opening statement's about 2 minutes and 90 seconds of it is silence. Yeah. Like he takes so much time in between each thing he's saying, and he's like, we're UCLA. If you didn't know, we're in LA. USC is the other school in LA. I mean, but anyway, it's good. It's a good sign that my biggest takeaway from Media Day really doesn't have to do with our team at all.
I mean, sure. Yeah.
I mean, you remember 2 years ago, the Scott Frost statement stuff. You remember that, where he didn't have a statement.
Yeah. What you guys got? And you can do that when you're winning. If you aren't, but anyway, no, yeah, I think you're right. Partly, like, we do know what to expect from Rule. Some of the things that he said, not just in part of his statement, but his appearance on Pat McAfee. I thought he did really well on both occasions. I mean, he did and listen, that
was the best interview of the day. That was awesome.
And McAfee isn't going is laid back as kind of an interviewer as he is. Yeah. If somebody is on his show spouting a bunch of bullshit, he doesn't let them do it. He pushes and challenges them on things. Yep. So the fact that he was able to kind of hold his own there and just be in that show.
And Pat just says the quiet part out loud too. He's like, Raiola, he's gonna be your starter. So what do you think about
Yeah. He's like, all right, yeah, you're having a quarterback battle, but he's gonna be your starter.
yeah. That's so funny. Because everybody knows that, and the media is never going to say that. But Pat doesn't consider himself a member of the media, and he just says whatever he thinks. But yeah, I thought that was the best interview of the day. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. 35-minute interview that Rule had with Pat McAfee. It's all good vibes from the Rule camp. It just is. It's all good vibes. Yep.
No, and you're right about the Feinbaum stuff. He's been on a tear recently, not just with us, which is why it is worth mentioning. Just he's been doing that, but with every other school that isn't in the SEC. He ripped into Dabo Sweeney yesterday.
Yeah.
And it sounded like the exact same, like, stay in your lane. You guys aren't going to be in the college football championship anyways. So what do you matter? You haven't been there for 4 years. Like, stay in your lane. Like, it was a bunch of like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then he ripped on Ryan Day and Franklin outside of Penn State. And I'm just like, dude, like,
here's how you have to think of it. It's like everybody knows CNN and MSNBC, all those things. They're Democrat, and everyone knows Fox News is Republican, right? So it's the same thing here. It's the Big Ten and it's the SEC. So you got to know NBC, CBS, they're on our side, okay? And you got to know ESPN, they're on SEC side. So anytime you see a pundit on ESPN talking anything Big Ten, talking anything your team, if you're a Big Ten fan, it's BS. They're paid. Yeah. They're paid. It's all about money. So like you can't really take it to heart. You just can't.
Well, it's not just that too. Like I'll take statements from people that have actually played to heart a little bit. He hasn't played. He hasn't coached. He's like, I guess his biggest accomplishment is learning how to fly when he was a baby, but like using his ears. But that's about it. Like,
look, and here's the thing: you gotta respect
if you can make it.
Like, here's the thing: you have to respect a little bit what Paul Feinbaum does because he knows what he looks like. He's not stupid. He knows what he looks like. He knows how he's perceived, and he leans into it. And we're talking about him, and people talk about him. You know what I mean? It's like a Stephen A. Smith type thing where he's literally saying the craziest thing to get a rise and reaction out of people. Mm-hmm. And I just try not to let it because, yeah, he just looks like a total D-bag. I mean, that's just what he looks like. He looks like the I'm gonna sue you type of guy. You know what I mean? Like
he looks like the little lawyer that comes in on an animated show trying to take away the restaurant from your ragged group of individuals.
He's like a prosecuting attorney in what's that show? It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He'd be like a character in Always Sunny in Philadelphia versus Charlie's uncle. Yeah. But my hands. But have you seen my very large hands? But anyway, yeah, we've given Paul enough airtime here. We'll move on.
So today, I mean, today was technically the first start of practices. Yeah. So as far as I checked before we came here, there wasn't a lot of news. Yeah. There were some things here and there, but there was nothing major first day of camp. So we'll start to get some good nuggets
for sure.
And our quarterback battle is going to get really more clarity.
Yeah. One interesting thing to me leading up to camp is that they did. You were allowed. You used to not be, from what I understood, as a coach, allowed to be there at all for summer, and now you were allowed to be there for like 4 out of the 9 weeks or something like this. 5 weeks without coaches, 4 weeks with coaches. So they had basically OTAs, is what they would call it in the NFL. And so there's been a lot more team activities, football-oriented team activities, leading up to fall camp this time around, which I think is an interesting aspect of it. But the other thing that makes this camp a whole lot different than any camp before is that now you can have unlimited assistant coaches on the field. I think that's another aspect of this that deserves getting talked about. Scott Frost had some problems towards the end of his coaching career. Some people I'd borderline on say conspiracy theorist, but I think it's probably true. Some people say that like when Trev came in, he didn't like Scott and he was looking for, ways to slap his wrist. And so, but long story short, that's allowed now. So like John Butler has an assistant DBs coach and they have assistant to the assistant basically. So, and that's good for player development and all that. And
it's stupid. It's one of those things that like, they don't really monitor that in the NFL at all. Yeah. They have all these trainers. There's a lot of so it's dumb that like college was one of those things that like just kind of kept it at bay because, parity, some schools can't do it.
You have a 53-man roster in the NFL. You have like 100 and some man roster in college. We need the coaches. Like, they actually need the coaches. Yeah. Like you have to be a master manager to just be out there with your, 28 DBs or whatever people have in their rooms and be able to actually efficiently, coach all of them. So it's definitely a good thing. And at first when I was seeing this, I was like, oh, Bill Bush is coming back. And then all the stuff happened with Evan and all. It just, I like Bill on the radio. I do like him on the radio. And here's the thing. He's always in town.
Yeah. And I think that he also, like, I think he's having a lot of fun doing what he's doing. And it's a lot less stress.
Yeah.
And he's got his paydays stuff.
His recruiting track record is so good, though. Like, it's so good. He's such a good recruiter. Like,
who says that he can't help?
Oh, no. My point is, like, I think if this goes the way we hope it goes and Bill's still in town, eventually he's going to be part of the equation. Eventually. I don't know that for sure, but I'm just saying, like, people like that can all of a sudden, like, hey, if there's a thing available, hey, Bill Bush would be good for this. Or, you know, you have a lot of other people in town. Damon Benning is in town. You know what I mean? Like, all these people that, like, all of a sudden, it's not a big deal for them to help out here and there, you know? So it's definitely a good thing. And it helps Rule because he's now able to be what he really wants to be, which is the CEO style head coach, lead from the top. He doesn't have to micromanage anything. He lets Tony take care of the defense and he lets Marcus take care of the offense. And yeah, but they had the media session yesterday, which I thought was pretty enlightening. I saw a couple of the interviews. I saw Coach Rule, but the big one I saw that I really liked was Jamari Butler, Emmett Johnson, and Banks, Jamal Banks, the new receiver. And one of the things Banks actually said that's coming to mind right now is he talked about Raiola, and he talked about how he just doesn't seem like a freshman. Which is encouraging signs and everything. But again, I mean, Josh Pate the other day on his show. I almost said our show. We had Josh Pate on.
Yeah.
Josh Pate on his show the other day talked about Nebraska, and he talked about how if you really do a close examination of their year last year, he was like, if they just had B- or better quarterback play, like they're an 8 or 9 win team. And it's like, man, with Raiola, what he's known for is being an efficient game managing quarterback. I mean, like he can make plays, but he manages the game. I mean, which is a quarterback's job, right? Yeah, we'll talk about that too. But if he can just like come in, not throw interceptions and not be a hindrance and every once in a while give us that deep ball we're looking for, that's all we really need. That's all we really need, and we'll be really good. But anyway, let's look at
this picture. I mean, so
for those listening,
again, you can find an audio only version of this podcast wherever podcasts are, and a video podcast on YouTube. But yeah, no. So this is a picture of Dylan Raiola, but he's gone like full Patrick Mahomes.
Yes,
he has the shades, he has the do, coming in with all this swag.
Dad bod and everything, I might say. I think
shirt's not very flattering.
Yeah, the shirt I don't think is the most flattering shirt in the world. Adidas, get your stuff together. But yeah, everyone remarked on when Pat would show up for OTAs and he's got like a little belly.
Yeah, like to also be fair, white is not a slimming color, so it is very much a. Like, see, you have white on right now. No, but he's going in to the dorms.
The funny thing about this is how viral it went, man. It went viral.
Let me see if I can. I'm not logged in, so it might not let me search. Hold on, I'm gonna.
Well, I'll just say what happened. I mean, Tyreek Hill responded to the thing, and he said, "Hey, yo." Basically, and he like tagged Patrick Mahomes. He's like, "Hey, like, who's this guy?" Like, basically, and then Pat was like, "That's my little cousin." And it's just funny, man. None of this is on accident. Like, here's the thing. I was talking to my friend about this earlier today. Actually, none of this is on accident. He trains with Patrick Mahomes. They have the same quarterback coach. Not only that, he's built a lot like him. He's a Hawaiian kid with the same complexion, and he has the same hair type. And like, they're very similar just as people, but then he's also a quarterback with a similar play style, and he dresses like him. So it's like when you add the he dresses like him element to it, it's like, who is this? Everyone, the country right now is like, who is this?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like, based on this going viral and that, if he's as good as we think he's going to be, like, he's going to be the face of college football for the next couple of years. I'll just say that.
Hopefully too. Yeah. No, it was funny how big this got. Because like some guys that I'm in a group chat with at work, not Husker fans at all.
Yep.
They're definitely sports fans.
I got hit up as well. That's why I knew
so
it was
like
big.
so they just sent that in our group chat and I was like, oh, look at this. And I was just like, oh wow. I mean, I saw it because they posted all those pictures on Instagram, so I saw them when they got posted, and I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Didn't give a second thought to it. Now it was going everywhere. You're right though. If you go on Twitter and like kind of search it, there's a bunch.
I'll do you one better. I was at the spring game where he wore 15, a red jersey, and played just like Pat Mahomes. So that to me is a bigger like, whoa, than whoa, he's wearing the same sunglasses that Pat wears.
Sure.
Yeah. How about he actually plays in a very similar style to him where it's like, man, like he can, based off of his footage, he operates, within the realm of what the offense asks of him. But if he's needed to, he can make plays, and that's really where that's where the difference could be made for us, is if he can actually make plays. On top of it.
I mean, we haven't had an offensive figure that I can remember in the past couple of years, even. That I just like, okay, he's gonna go out and make a play.
Right.
I mean, the closest thing we had to it was Adrian, but he always mixed in a dummy play mixed in with it. Right. So you were never like safe thinking like, okay, he's gonna take over.
Never thought that about Adrian. Never thought that, okay, time for Adrian to take over the game. Yeah. It was always Adrian could make the game close, but I never, when you said that, the last name that comes to mind for me is Amir. Amir could take over a game, and he did multiple times. And before him, Rex, right? Mm-hmm. But even like if you look at guys like Tommy, and you look at guys like Tommy Armstrong, and you look at guys like Jordan Westerkamp, and like those dudes, absolute ballers who would play on this team. Let's say that much. Like we're talking about how all good all these guys were, and how good our quarterback room is, and it is great. But Tommy was a good quarterback, man. Throw him into this room today, and it would be a battle.
He probably starts
this year.
This year,
probably. Rule would manage him better too. Rule would manage him a lot better.
Now, especially his last year, like they wanted him to be like this big pro style offensive quarterback. Yeah, it just wasn't. He did okay at it.
He did okay. Yeah, he did. He was. And I don't want to disparage Heinrich too much. But we just only have the one season of what we saw, and I think that Tommy was probably definitely a better thrower than Heinrich. But we don't know what Heinrich is now. That's the interesting thing about this whole thing is like maybe with Glenn Thomas, maybe with all this stuff, Heinrich's taken a step up to the point where his throwing's good enough that we got to have him on the field. Like his running's so good, like he's got to be on the field. And now he can throw, which opens it up even more. So that is the Hail Mary scenario, in my opinion, is like if it comes to the first game of the year and Heinrich starting, I've said in the past that I wouldn't feel good about that. I think I'm to the point where like I trust the coaching staff. And as long as there's no injury, if whoever they say is the starter, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, no, I'm there too. And listen, if it is Harburg, then he's definitely taken up a step up in his passing game. Yeah, because that is what they want to do this year. Rule's been very clear that he wants to be able to pass the ball. And rewatching the season, the past like week or so, it was very apparent. People sold out for the run if they could realize, their passing's not there today, and then the offense stalled. So like that, you have to be multidimensional, and you have to be able to do that. So if he is the starter, who knows?
For Heinrich, the big factor that I think is the biggest change this year is our wide receiver group. I think you can trust them a lot more. Yeah. Whereas, I mean, and I've talked about how Heinrich kind of throws piss missiles a little bit. I mean, he just throws the shit out of the ball, and he's got a really strong arm. But when you do that, when you throw it just as hard as you can, and we've seen this in College Football 25, is like when you throw a missile, like it's got to be in the exact right spot because there's very little margin for error. Like with Raiola, his MO is sort of like touch passes, and then there's a lot of margin for error if you just can place the ball correctly. Velocity doesn't matter quite as much in a lot of scenarios, right? But with Harburg, if he can just figure out how to just put those piss missiles in a place where only his receivers can like make a play on the ball, he'll do great. Because I think Banks, Nayor, I think these dudes will make plays on the ball for sure. Ja'Cory Barney, some of these young dudes we got, I'm very excited about wide receiver.
I'm very excited about Lloyd, and I know you mentioned EA 25.
Yeah, Lloyd's awesome in the game.
I'm just like playing as the guys. It's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And what's even like more fun is I just on online play, I've only played with Nebraska, and I'm 19-3.
Nice.
And every time I just recently I beat Ohio State this afternoon. Someone who's playing as Ohio State 21-3. They went up 3-0, and then they drove down the field, and I picked 6, kind of how I did for you the other day on the goal line, and it never looked back. Then he started panicking, and then they've never finished the game because when they see, and this is it gets around to the point of real football, because it gets to the point where your brand is so diminished by your lack of winning that people don't understand the type of athletes that Nebraska does have.
Yep.
So the game did a good job of saying, yeah, they have athletes. And they can put it all together, because I beat Georgia, I beat Alabama, I beat Oregon, Ohio State, and we're going to do all that this year too.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but like when the perception changes, I feel like you're going to, by the end of the year, a lot more people are going to be playing as Nebraska. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, any normie that just like doesn't normally play Madden, but then just steps up and is like, I'm going to play Madden.
Yeah.
Who do they play as?
Chiefs.
The Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. What did we just spend 10 minutes talking about? So like I said, if he can fulfill like that expectation at all, I agree with you. We're going to be a pretty popular team to play with in that game. I recommend playing that game, by the way. If you've never played video games before and you're just a college football fan, I highly recommend just going to play the game, because it is really fun. It gives you a good insight. Now that there's names and players in the game, it gives you really good insights into like what everybody's roster sort of looks like. It's like I'm looking at it right now as almost sort of like an interactive Phil Stills magazine, because here's the thing, like EA, it's not perfect, like everything's not exactly right, but neither is Phil Stills magazine. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, it's just cool. It's very cool. I like that it's back. It makes me more excited for the season for sure.
No, it absolutely does. And, just being able to play with the players with their names, it was something that we always used to do for all of our favorite players, because they were in the game. They just weren't in the game. So you had to go and change their name, play it and everything. And I remember us doing that and everything. But it's
halfback 20 player. It was like player 5, halfback 20. It's like that.
Their numbers were always right.
Yeah, the numbers were right.
So you just went on the roster, looked for the number, and you're like 22. Oh, that's Burkhead.
But every once in a while, it would get to the point where it's like halfback 22. It's a white guy. No, that's not a white. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they didn't have to care about it. Really.
Yeah, now they do, and they've done a pretty good job. I mean, for Nebraska's roster, you have to go in and sub out the starting running back they have for us every time, because it's somebody we've never heard of. But
I feel like they did a good job of mixing. I guess this is like an EA 25 review now.
Yeah, it kind of is, which is fine. We've talked about it a lot leading up to it anyway. So our audience deserves our thoughts.
No, and I think they did struck a good balance. Because I've played every recent Madden for the past probably like 6 years. So I've still been like playing football games. And they did a way better job with this one. With making it feel fun, but not too robotic. That Madden can seem sometimes. Like in Madden, you can find 3 plays on both offense and defense. You can just run those 3, and nobody will ever beat you, because they've figured out, oh, that's how the animation goes, so that guy's going to be open. You have to know football so much more in this game than you do. It is so much better. And
God, what's his name? There's a YouTuber whose MO is with football games is that when the new football game comes out, he tries to beat the algorithm by like beating the algorithm to him is I can get on, go to the hardest level, Heisman or whatever, and play an exhibition game and score 100 points on a team. And that's what he's done. So he figured out that this one play in college football, he could just run it every play, and he scored 100 points. So there is some stuff like that, but even then, like he's playing AI in that circumstance. You know, like if you're playing real humans, like for instance, the other day me and Blake were playing. And like I'm running decent plays, like you know what I mean. Like I'm logically like, okay, this should work off of this. You know what I mean? Like it's like the plays I'm running make sense, right?
Yeah.
But like I'll do a thing and like he'll control Tommy Hill or Javen Wright or whoever, and he'll do like an Ed Reed thing where he pretends he's in one part of the field. He knows I'm going to go to like the dig or whatever, and then he moves, and all of a sudden the player's there, and he makes a pick. It's like you got to be a good player. Like that's just what it is. Like
you have to know, like, okay, they're in that formation. That kind of route combo makes sense. So I mean, you guess a lot. But it happens.
Yes.
That it works.
Yes.
But yeah, and that happens in real life too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that they just did a good job of making it be fun again.
They did.
Because people that play Madden play it begrudgingly because there was no other football game. There's no other football game. And they played it begrudgingly, and they were just like, ugh, okay, this kind of sucks, but I'm going to play it anyways.
Right.
There's none of that here. It's fun. It's legitimately fun to play.
Yeah, I do agree, but I still wish that the copyright licensing thing was a little bit more open source. No, a little bit more open source as far as like 2K or anybody, Activision, whoever wants to make a college football game could theoretically make one, but that's just not the case. EA's got the official licensing for it, so no other people could even attempt to make a crack at it if they wanted to. You could make a football game theoretically, I guess, right? Like just, but it would just be with random teams.
They have and like made up teams.
Yeah,
but they're also you're not for Madden to have the Madden license. You're not allowed to make a simulation based game, so you can't like simulate games. So that's part of their like contract. So even if a team wanted to try like another like gaming studio or anything, they can't. So they have to try to make the like games of football different than football actually is. It's really weird. And it's another one of those things that you're just like, ugh,
yeah. Because like
every now and then they come out with a gem too.
Man.
But they're
sorry.
Yeah.
You know, football's forever. You should be able to make this is a professional sports league, the Sabertooths versus the Sharks. I mean, I understand like that there's one company that has all the licensing and they're allowed to have the Chiefs and the NFL and all this stuff. But like the game of football, you're allowed to copyright the game of football and a simulation of the game of football. That's crazy to me. Yeah. That's crazy to me. Anyway, we talked a lot.
Yeah, we did. And next week is going to be next week. Is that what we decided?
Yeah.
Next week is going to be our season preview.
Yeah.
Then we're going to take another week off because I'll be on a trip. And then we come back and it's game week.
Game week.
So
next week we're doing our predictions. That's what we'll do. Next week I'll do our like season predictions.
Season predictions.
Okay. How about this? So we do Nebraska's record. And just for shits and giggles, we'll fill out our playoff bracket. How about that?
For next week?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Because then we got our playoff down and we got our season prediction for Nebraska down, and boom, that's the thing you predict every year. That's going forward. That's going to be the normal thing you'll see on sports shows. Their ranking, and then record predictions for teams, and then who's in the playoff. But for us, because we're a Nebraska podcast, we'll do Nebraska's record prediction and then who's going to be in the playoffs. Spoiler alert, that might also be Nebraska oriented.
Every year you do this.
Look,
and I'm
man,
gonna give you
it's not a crazy proposition for a team to be in the playoff anymore, especially with a team with an easy schedule in the Big Ten. Look, man, if we put it together, we will be in the playoff. That's the thing.
Sure.
So, but the question is, if we put it together, I mean, and like we said, we lost freaking a dozen players, good players, in the first 3 games of last year. So you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't even want to speak it into existence, but anyway, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what I think by next week.
You think by next week? Yeah. So expect at least an episode a week from here on out.
Blake's going to Ireland, so we might have a little lull. But besides that, we're gonna be going fast and hard, just the way Brooks likes it. So yes, he's going to go to Aviva Stadium and pay tribute.
I'm actually there on a
heard around the world.
I'm actually there to collect Scott Frost tears. Apparently, they've solidified, and they need a Nebraska fan to come get them. Yeah.
If you wear your Nebraska stuff, you might get people stopping you and say, "Hey, I remember blah 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 blah."
You guys really bungled it.
yeah, y'all sucked. Yeah, and your coach was a racist bigot because I read that one article a week before it. I don't even remember what that article said, but it was something about I don't even remember. It was just it was a Scott Frost hit piece, is what it was.
Yeah, that's what it was.
No, it was.
No, I know it was. Anyway, well, that's gonna be it for
today
on Cornhusker Corner. Always remember, no place like
this podcast.
Podcast.